everybody, welcome in our third episode of the Way Out of Childhood Trauma podcast, or if you see us on the YouTube as the video, welcome. My name is Barb Smith Varclova, and I am a therapist in neurostep counseling and founder of Trauma Response Reprogramming. And here with me is the Lela Mrdak, fellow therapist from Mind Freedom Therapy, and we will speak today about boundaries. So, Lela, how it is about you and boundaries?
Yes, good evening, Barb. It's an honor to be here with you again in this new episode when we speak about the boundaries. When I work with my clients, I find that most of them have very poor personal boundaries, and it's usually because of the childhood trauma that they couldn't heal, and because the parents are the ones who set the boundaries in childhood, and they tell their children what to do and what not to do, and they rarely teach their children that they do have the right to decide if they want to do something or not, that they do have the right to say yes or no to something. So they grow up believing that they don't have the right to say no, that they need to please others in order to avoid rejection and to avoid pain, being hurt, and not having good personal boundaries complicates relationships with people, because relationships are the cornerstones of our lives. And boundaries can make or break our relationships. That means our friendships, loveships, relationships among family members. And we, most of the time, ignore our boundaries, or we forget about the importance of boundaries. And this shows that we don't have self-respect, and that we don't show to others that we have a positive sense of self. Honoring our boundaries is a state of personal and mutual respect. So what is a boundary? A boundary is a demonstration of self-respect and respect for others. A boundary is a structure, an expectation, a request, a system that we put in order, that we put in place to show what is that we are going to accept, tolerate, accommodate, and what is not. And we use boundaries to define the behaviors and experiences that we don't want to tolerate in our lives. So the boundaries help us define and establish the limits between ourselves and other people. Boundaries also keep other people aware of what we can tolerate, accommodate, accept, and they also keep us aware of what we want to tolerate, accept, and accommodate in our life, in our world. So having good boundaries can really transform our lives and can really help us take care of ourselves, of our feelings, our needs, how we want to think, how we want to behave, feel around other people. And I think the most important thing about the boundaries is to feel safe around someone who is constantly manipulating us, lying to us, using us, hurting us. So if we have the need to feel safe around our mother, our partner, our boyfriend, or a child that is disrespecting us, hurting us, this means that we have to work on personal boundaries. Barb, do you agree?
Yeah, absolutely agree. It's also absolutely great explanation. So it's about that when we see it in the reality, and I see it in with my clients, that when the child is learn not to use their whole range of emotions, when they don't learn to realize what they like, what they don't like, they're not allowed to express it, usually because there is installed fear in them, or they would be withdraw attention or love if they will do that. They don't really realize where their boundaries are. They don't realize who they really are and what they tolerate and not. But also important is that we a lot of speaking about assertivity sometimes, and I don't know, maybe 2 decades back, it's very popular to speak about being assertive, being, saying no, saying, but it's really important that we can get to that place, or where we can voice our opinion in the right way, only when we actually feel it inside. That but it's very, people saying, oh, I'm so trying, but I would keep quiet, or I would start shouting. It's none of them. It's that right amount for me. I feel that it's not what I should do, and it's really about, because inside they not have that, as you're saying, that self-strength. But I find out it's very often linked to the self-love. So many clients or other people who suffer with anxiety or depression then would say, I know that I'm in unhealthy relationship, but I will not go from it. And because I'm afraid to voice, or I'm, what I will do alone, or, don't that. And, or they would say, oh, I didn't control myself. I start shouting, I start be, nasty. And I say, like, yeah, but because first you disrespect yourself. It's not be disrespectful to others. It's respect to yourself, respect, and have that self-love for me to be able to say so. And that's why I find out, and it's visible on the statistics, that people who suffer from childhood trauma, much likely, actually it's very high percentage, over 60% more likely, will end up in toxic relationship, in abusive relationship, would become the victims of narcissist abuse, or will have the partners with abusing the drugs or be violent. Very often they are going from the same or similar background of childhood trauma, so they kind of feel related. They kind of feel that they have something in common, but the reality is that the relationships are not working if they are not actually healing, both of them, and they're hurting each other. So I find out that build up the boundaries is really, really important, and but for that is really needs to go from inside. But what I found very interesting is one description I heard from teacher of the Silva method years ago, and I think that is describing very nicely. We are afraid to build up boundaries often because we don't want to be aggressive. We don't want to be seen aggressive, especially if somebody grew up in an environment when there was a lot of verbal or physical aggression, and or it was suppressed, that don't raise your voice, be calm, stuff like that. But it's like, if we will imagine that we are a kingdom, and we have these borders with others, and with some people it can be a lawn, beautiful green lawn, when there are just few stones marking when the boundaries are, because both sides know where they are and they are respected. With some people we need to put their kind of white plank fence, and kind of be able to speak over the fence with the neighbor, and so they would know where our boundaries are. But with some people we need to build a 5 meters concrete wall with a barbed wire on the top, and maybe put there some gun machine, and we need to really be very clear, and maybe sometimes almost aggressive, but to be able to show them that this is not what we will tolerate, that we are not letting them going over our boundaries. And that's not actually aggression, that's just being clear about where the boundaries are. And then it's leaving toxic relationships, or actually really cutting off relationship, even in the family, which are really not helpful, which are really hurtful, and that's all right. And sometimes people are afraid of it, and they said that they cannot do that because, you know, it's wrong, it will not be accepted. But we have the both rights for boundaries. We can have the nice, loving relationship with people, and we can find the people which will respect our boundaries. And of course, it's our goal is that be around the people who would respect us. But we have also right to put up our boundaries as the strong one, and say no, really, really strong no. I will not accept it. You will not be part of my life.
Yes, it's beautiful how you explained it very deeply, in a very profound way, that one of the main reasons why we don't have clear boundaries is because in our childhood we were taught by our parents that it is acceptable that your parent screams and yells at you and then says, "I'm sorry, I love you." Or they beat you and they say, "Sorry, I love you." And this is the formula that your subconscious mind accepts about love. Love is like that. So when, for example, let's say a boyfriend or husband is yelling at a woman and is speaking to her in a diminishing, hurtful way, it is the way how he expresses about the perception of the woman. It shows, does he respect her or not? And it shows, does she have a positive sense of herself or not? So it is about us. It is about our internal power, our inner guidance, that we need to believe that we can do it. We can establish a boundary, even if it's difficult at first. It will get easy because it is up to us. Other people are not going to set boundaries. We don't have control of how are people going to talk to us, if they're going to lie, manipulate, if they're going to hurt us. We cannot control that, but we can control what we want to feel, how we want to live our lives, and what are we prepared to tolerate and accept. So we should make a list of things that we no longer want to tolerate. For example, we're not going to tolerate that someone to us in a bad way, diminishing, hurtful, screaming, yelling, and we are going to say, okay, this is my boundary. I will not be spoken to like this ever again. And also list of the people that we think we can communicate our boundaries to and negotiate about our boundaries, and the list of the people that we believe are never going to accept or and respect our boundaries, and we have to exclude those people from our lives. If it means no contact, then we have to accept that that relationship, that friendship is going to be over. So when we want to set a boundary, it is very important to sit down with yourself, take pen and paper, and think about how you want to define your boundaries. And then think about how are you going to establish and communicate about your boundary with your partner, mother, father, sibling, whoever. And then think about the consequence, because boundary without a consequence is just an empty threat. For example, if you say, my boundary is, I will never tolerate that anyone diminishes, belittles, or hits a child in my presence. And when this happens, you have to immediately activate the consequence, because you have explained to this person, if this happens in my presence, I will remove myself from you, or I will stop having any contact with you for the rest of my life. And you need to act immediately. You cannot act in 2 weeks, in 2 months, in 2 years, because you are building, establishing, reinforcing your boundaries that are going to keep you safe from the external and internal intrusions. The purpose of the boundary is that they want to keep us safe, and they want to give us respect, self-respect, and respect from other people. So our boundary can be I don't want anyone to scream at me and yell at me. And if you just say to someone, how can you speak to me like that? Or how can you treat me like this? This is terrible. This means just asking a question, nothing more than that. So it's making a demand, asking a question. It is not a boundary. A boundary is that you explain to someone that you don't want to tolerate screaming and yelling, and what is your consequence, because you have the power to decide how is this person going to be punished if they cross and violate your boundaries. And people very often want to violate our boundaries at first because they're used to, they have benefits from that, especially if you're a people pleaser. If you put other people's needs first, if you want others to be happy and you don't want to disappoint them, they keep coming for more. They don't want your boundaries. They don't want things to change. And your job is to reinforce the boundary and the consequence, and to show that you have self-respect if you want respect from others. Do you agree, Barb?
Yeah, for sure. And I think that it was a great description of what is not often known, and we're just calling the phone reflex, which is that people pleasing. And it's one of the responses for the trauma, the creating this phone response, this people pleasing, this trying to get that appreciation, or just kind of make them like you, be, do whatever, just being in their presence, to calling for that attention. And but people could say, okay, I don't have so hard experience. I don't, my partner respects me, or my children respects me. But I want to say people that often we found this when I had several clients which came to me with issue with the public speaking, be worried, be have be stuck, have the blushing when they public speaking, or they just cannot use their voice, they get stuttered, or they can be really quiet voice, or almost frozen when they're supposed to speak on the meetings in the work, or dare to present, not will get to that because nobody would ask them to do that, because they know that they would just froze when they do it. And it's actually the same thing. It's actually the same feeling that you cannot actually use your voice properly. You really feel that's almost strangulation feeling in your voice to get that respect, to voice your opinion, to voice your boundaries, to tell people what you want, how you feel and how you want it. So it's important to realize that how it's shown in the life, it's many different ways. It can be moms whose children just going over their heads because they just not able to they don't respect in themselves, so they struggling really create that balanced relationship with their children. It can be this issue in the work, to feeling of failing all the time because cannot make everybody happy, working very hard. Sometimes it's even turning like really to the very hard workaholism of, again, it's just very hard symptom of the phone response, to try to get attention, try to be best. And very often it's in that way that I cannot even speak up. I cannot speak publicly, even in like speaking with the teachers about my children, or to tell them that I don't feel okay about how they feel. I had a client which really struggling with want to do best for her children, but struggling to tell doctors what she wants for them, struggling to tell teachers what she doesn't like that they're doing with their children, because she always get frozen that they would not, because as the child nobody respected. It was just like, be quiet, be shush, not you don't have the right to opinion. And sometimes it's actually also culturally induced, that in cultures where especially the voice of the woman and girls are very diminished and very suppressed, they really struggling in their adulthood to become this independent, confident, and be able to set up their boundaries, what they would tolerate and not. And it's can be really hard for them, but I work with clients like that, and the change I see in them and their life, that's amazing, because when we go for that route, when we go for this reason behind which is in that childhood, that fear, that pleasing, that trying to get attention, and we release that, and we really move to the be adult, be responsible for yourself, use your voice, use your posture, use your how you walking, how you speaking, what words you using, tone and strength, then it's making massive change in their lives, and they get new jobs, they moved, they get divorced or get the new partners, start business or change the job. And it's really powerful how with the therapy it can be changed. So that's really important to say, that if somebody have that feeling that I understand that, I know that boundaries are important, but how am I supposed to do that? I'm saying, look for the therapy, and you can change that.
Yes. Once when you are clear about your boundaries, once when you identify and define your boundaries and the consequences that support you in being treated in a way how you see yourself within yourself and how you feel about yourself, other people are going to see that there is something different about you, that something has changed, and they're going to be challenged. The same thing happens with children, because when parents want to establish boundaries and rules for the children, and of course the punishment, children tend to move those boundaries, those rules, and they want to test them very often. And whenever you see a child that is very bossy, demanding, that is angry and insulting, disrespectful towards the parents, this means that there are no good generational boundaries. Generational boundaries are about setting the limits between the parent and the child, and the parent is the figure that has authority and has the power to raise the child, teach them, educate them, and the child needs to obey the rules and respect the rules. But of course, some psychologists, like Adlerian psychologists, believe that whenever a child behaves in this disrespectful way and wants to be bossy towards their parents, this means this child feels deeply emotionally neglected by their parents and just wants to grab the power, wants to grab the attention. And parents do have a job to sit down and communicate to the child about the boundaries in a good way, without using any force, without using any violence. So setting boundaries begins by defining values, your belief system, and your outlook on life. And you need to be clear about explaining people what is no longer going to be said around you, done around you, and felt around you. So if you don't want to tolerate that someone calls you names, even if it's your boss, your neighbor, your partner, you need to say, you need to explain that, because people don't know if this bothers you, but they're just going to treat you the way they see you, they perceive you. And if you want to establish boundaries, you have to be prepared that people are going to resist your boundaries. They're going to be challenged and try to violate them, because at first they're learning. They're still learning about your boundaries, about your new rule. And sometimes they have a habit of behaving in the old way. They use the old patterns of behavior. But you need to remind them. It is your job to remind them, to reinforce the boundary, and to protect yourself, to protect your well-being, the feelings of safety, the feelings of happiness, integrity, and to protect your limits, your physical boundaries, emotional boundaries, mental. Sometimes you just need to create a physical and emotional space of safety around people, and you need to explain that. Because nobody else has the power to define us, to define values, our belief systems, and what is acceptable, what are we going to tolerate. If we give away that power, we're going to be continuously manipulated, used, lied to, and maybe even abused physically. So we really have to do the work. We have to sit down and talk to ourselves, be honest about what are we prepared to tolerate and what are we not. What experience we no longer want in our life. So yeah.
Yeah, it's you describe it so nicely about that safe space, you know, we need to create, because it's really relating, it came to my mind, like there is maybe between our listeners or somewhere, or you know somebody like who care about child who has traumatic experience, maybe foster carers, adoptive parents, or grandparents which taking on the child which came through this traumatic experience, and the child already small, 6, 7, 10, 12 years old would show these symptoms of trauma. Is it they would be angry, or they would be very withdrawn, or they would be not want to follow any rules, non-disrespectful, and all that. And but exactly, it's about it, because they didn't feel safe, because they just trying to protect themselves. They don't believe anybody, they don't believe themselves, they just trying their best to survive. They are in this survival mode, and they just trying to make the boundaries like very badly, or like we would like, okay, I respect you, but they don't know better in that moment. It's take time, and it's take the therapy to get through it. But again, it's working for children. So like if any of our listeners, you know, you have the child which have this behavior, maybe because went through hard divorce, or was, you know, in the care of abusive parent, or, you know, witness physical abuse, or, you know, there is so many stories, or was sexually abused or physically, and they have these behaviors, they have this anger, or withdrawal, or self-harm, or, you know, just fighting back and screaming at you and stuff like that. For them, the therapy, what we are doing, the therapy of rapid transformation therapy or trauma response reprogramming, is really working, because we can really look on that core issue with them. We can, and it's quick, it's rapid, and it's releasing that inner feeling of not being safe, not being heard, not getting attention. So then those who care for them can actually care for them better, because I know that so many people are so amazing and taking care of these kids, and I know how hard it is for them. It's so extremely hard to care about child, you know, which is taking off from environment when they're going through child abuse. So I just want to say that the therapy is not just for adults. It's not just for when you look back on your life and you find out, yeah, this happened to me and this is how it's affected my life, and I'm struggling. I'm 25, I'm 35, I'm 55. but that's also for children, because actually that could change, and that would be amazing. It's my wish for a world, if we could start healing, children, if we could start healing the teenagers, so it doesn't have to grow the other generation of people. And the same way, if people are parents and they see that their behavior caused by their childhood trauma, passing on the trauma on their children, which can be what I most often have, that if there's some outburst of the anger of the parents, they don't want to, but they cannot control themselves in that moment, or being too strict, or like not connecting with the child because they are not connected with themselves, and they passing on it and they see it and they don't want it, look out for therapy. It's possible. When if the parents get healed, with parent move, child can also, they are very adaptive, their mind is very flexible, and they don't have to stay in the traumatized state, and they can grow up to the adults which are fully functional, they are fully ready for the adults.
Yes. And I think that people today have this wounded inner child that didn't heal from the childhood abuse or trauma or neglect. And whenever you're triggered, it means that you need healing. Whenever you're triggered with someone who is insulting you, beating you, disrespecting you, manipulating you, and you react in a exaggerated or inappropriate way, or you just feel so much pain, anger, and hurt, this means that you definitely have to heal your wounded inner child. And this begins by deciding how you want to live, who you are, and then you can define your boundaries, you can announce them to other people, and then you set the consequences. Because as I already said, when we define and establish and announce a boundary without a consequence, this is just an empty threat. For example, when a woman says to her husband who is beating her, "If you ever hit me ever again, I will leave you. I will take the children and leave you." But she never does. She's just constantly threatening, and he knows this because he is the intruder. He is violating her personal, physical, emotional, and mental boundaries and destroying her well-being and the well-being of her children. So it is very important when you announce the consequence that you will leave, for example, the next time someone hits you or disrespects you, then you have to immediately do it. You have to immediately activate the consequence, because it will give you power. You will feel empowered. You will feel so good inside of you, because for the first time you will discover that you do have the right to say yes and no, and that you can contribute to the design of your life. You can be this amazing architect of your future, of your relationships, and you can have a better future without repeating the old patterns with people. Because people always say, "I don't know why I attract someone who's just like my mother or like my father, or why do I attract narcissistic partners?" And they never go to therapy, they never do the healing. They always have the same old patterns, very poor personal boundaries. And this is why it is repeating in their life like a bad pattern.
Yeah, I just want to say that it's really important to realize this and seek help. I know that for some people it could be very challenging to leave situation they are in because of accommodation, about access to the money and all that. But I really want to encourage people to seek help, look for many charities working in many states and around the world who helping in situations like that with providing of accommodation, of financial aid. And if you are living in a situation like that, to try to find a way out of it. We know that it's not always easy, or could almost seems impossible in some time. We also know that in some part of the world it's not supported. There is no many, for example, shelters for women and stuff like that. But we hope that everybody can have this safe way out of toxic relationships, that somebody in family will step in, or that or there is somewhere some organization or social work which would help. And but I think that it's really important in the moment when we start put up boundaries, we will start seeing solutions. And that's important, that in the moment when we say enough is enough and we start looking for solution, we will start seeing them. And yeah, they are not always ideal, they are sometimes hard, but sometimes it's really about what is the worst evil, and special for parents. And I'm not saying that it's always women, because I know the stories also of the guys who was abused in the relationship. So please, I'm not saying that it's always women who need to leave. It can be men's, and sometimes it's really hard to watch it when they give up on their boundaries. So seek help, seek therapy, seek help as you can leave this this relationship. And it's nothing wrong, it's not to be selfish, and especially if there are children included in that. Many women I speak with working with the women which have the coming from toxic relationships, I was saying that they took the power from children. They took the power from, I do it for children, and that the first step wasn't even for them. But the realization that you're passing on the trauma to your children, that if they witness these behaviors, if they are part of it, if they become scared, it's growing other generation of people with the trauma. So when I take it from that. So we today ran slightly over time, but this is so important topic, and so much going on. I think that we will definitely go back to it and in some future episode. So if you have some questions, you can leave us the comments on podcast page, or on Podbean or Google, Spotify, or you can find us on Facebook, on Instagram. If you will go on our webpage of the podcast, wayoutoftrauma.podbean.com, you will find links when you can contact us directly. And so we are happy to help if you want to. Also, we are happy to answer any questions related to the other topics of this, if you have more questions, and we can get back to it in some future episodes. So thank you very much, Lela, for coming on. And I hope that you will listen to us, subscribe or follow us, so you will be notified about our next episode. And have a lovely day. Bye.
Yes. Bye.